Hello once again, everyone. Welcome back for another video. It's time for a review video. We're talking Batman vs. Superman. Now, I'm going to tell you, there's going to be spoilers, so if you haven't seen it, you should probably stop watching. Although, I'm going to be a minute before I actually get into my review here, because I was going to mention a few things. First of all, I wasn't even originally going to see this movie, but lo and behold, I ended up seeing it anyway. And another thing I wanted to point out really quick, some of you might remember a ways back, like a year-ish ago, when I did my personal rant videos about a certain psycho bitch who had caused me and a friend of mine issues at our work. But either way, out of all the possibilities, what were the odds that we both ran into her at the movie theater? So that was quite interesting. And of course, she goes to the same movie as us the same time and sits right behind us. It's like, wow, all the planets were perfectly aligned. What kind of bullshit was this? Luckily, there was no actual shenanigans going on, but it was still a what the fuck moment. Now, this is your last chance. Again, if you don't want spoilers for the movie, if you haven't seen it yet, then stop right now. Because from this point forward, more than likely, I will be talking about a lot of key things. Although, the trailers did reveal most of the movie anyway. So, where do we start? Let's start with some of the characters. We'll talk about each character here. Ben Affleck went into the movie. Actually, I should start off by saying, all the critics have been bashing the movie. In the end, I didn't mind it. It was actually a pretty decent movie. But anyway, back on point. Ben Affleck. I hate the guy. Not a fan. Simple as that. And I was gonna just be like, oh, he's the Heath Ledger of Batman. If there's gonna be a bad Joker, there's got to be a bad Batman at some point. Now, a lot of people are like, oh, I liked Heath Ledger. Well, whatever. If you can somehow like that, go for it. But for me, Ben Affleck he wasn't god awful, but he's still the bottom of the barrel for me. Christian Bale still wins as Bruce Wayne / Batman. Now, Alfred is a character that I had a bit of an issue with. Not a major issue, but it was a severe, noticeable issue. Every time, Alfred is noticeably much older than Bruce. And I know in Batman vs. Superman, this is, kind of taking the same path as the, is it the Dark Knight animated movie, whatever, where Batman's older and everything. Yet he looks the exact same age, roughly, as Batman, as Bruce Wayne. And I was like, Alfred, you're supposed to be like 80. Like, this doesn't work. In fact, and with his costume, no offense to the actor, because he did a good job, but he looked much more like Commissioner Gordon than Alfred, which Commissioner Gordon wasn't even in the movie, and at one point Batman himself turns on his own bat signal, which I don't think he's ever done that before. So I was kind of like, that's kind of weird. But either way, not a big fan of the choice of character, or actor, I should say, for Alfred, just because he wasn't old enough looking. Another thing I want to talk about when I talked about Batman, I should have mentioned, was the suit and the gadgets and stuff. Not a fan of the bat suit. I said that before I even watched the movie, like from trailers and the first screenshots and stuff. I was not a fan of the suit. It looked more like cloth than armor. I don't like the Batmobile in this movie, and I don't like the Batwing, or Batplane, whichever you prefer to call it. It just, didn't do it for me. So next character we'll talk about is, let's talk about Lex. And I'm sorry I don't remember all the actors' names here, but the guy who plays Lex, he was in the movie Now You See Me, the Magician movie, and The Social Network. You know who I'm talking about. I went into this movie thinking, like, he doesn't look like Lex at all. Doesn't make sense. Came out of it saying, wow, he actually really nailed it. Did a fan-fucking-tastic job and actually really enjoyed him as Lex Luthor. It was a different take, but it wasn't so far out of the way that it was like, well, you just completely butchered him. Because in the end, he gets his head shaved, and you're like, there you go, now you look more like the Lex of the future. But, so he did a good job. Superman, now I never actually saw Man of Steel. Was there even a second one? There might have been a second one. So I don't really know much about the, his history from his side of things. I've never been a huge Superman fan. I've never hated him, but I've just never cared about him too much. I'm just neutral on Superman, so whatever. And of course, I was rooting for the Batman to beat Superman, even if it's Ben Affleck. But Wonder Woman, let's talk her. Surprisingly, I went into the movie thinking, like, she doesn't really need to be here. I know it's a Justice League build-up movie, but she doesn't really need to be here. But ultimately, she actually pulled it off pretty good, I would say. Impressed me a fair bit. And there was a few teasers hidden in the movie. Not really hidden, they were there on purpose to show you what's coming in the future. But there was some audio clips or video clips from Lex that Batman had stolen, showing off, the Flash, Aquaman, and Cyborg was the other one. So that was kind of interesting. Then I've seen a lot of people complain about the story, where they're like, "Oh, the fight scenes were great, but the story was lacking." I don't agree. I don't agree. Yes, there wasn't as much fighting as, say, the Christian Bale movies, but at the same time, if this is the first stepping stone into building a Justice League movie, they're not going to start off with the first step being massive explosions every 5 seconds and a big fucking fight every 5 minutes. You got to pace yourself. So you got to start off slow, a nice slow build, and explain, the origins, the building of the team. So that was interesting. Now, Doomsday, he was I mean, cool and everything, being created from Zod. I actually don't know if that was actually how he's always been, if that's how Doomsday was created in like the comics and everything, because never really read the Superman comics. But it was interesting nonetheless, with Lex cutting his hand, dripping his own blood over Zod's body, and then using an alien ship to, break the Kryptonian law and bring back him, but mutated him into Doomsday. So, in the end, actually, we're not going to get to that part yet. First, we'll talk about Batman fighting Superman. Didn't happen for a long time, but it was, Lex kind of manipulating the scenes, turning Batman towards Superman and Superman towards Batman, and he wanted them to fight each other, yada, yada, yada. Now, maybe the critics are harsh because they're all Superman fanboys, and they're sad that once again Batman kicks Superman's ass. Yeah, Superman got in some shots and he broke Batman's helmet a bit and stuff, but of course Batman, like always, even as Kevin Conroy himself said, he always has a plan. He stole kryptonite, which I should have explained, that Lex got from the bottom of the ocean, and which, why it got there, I guess, is from the meteor shower type thing. Either way, so Batman steals it from Lex because he doesn't want Lex to have it, and then he uses it to manufacture his own stuff to use against Superman because he's like, Superman could destroy the world, we gotta stop him, I'm the only one that can, yada yada yada. So he makes kryptonite smoke grenade bomb things, three of them, and, blasts Superman in the face with one, and it weakens him to basically being immortal temporarily. It seemed pretty quick that it wore off, though, maybe about 2 minutes and of Batman punching him in the face and kicking his ass, and then Superman would start to regain his energy and send Batman flying, and then Batman would shoot another one at his face to keep him weakened in a weakened state. And then, of course, he had made his trump card, which he, stabbed in the ground where he wanted Superman to come fight him, was a kryptonite spear. Looked pretty cool, had nothing against it, and so, there was the whole line earlier where Batman's like, "Do you bleed? Because you will." And in the end, he's beating up Superman, and he's got him pinned down with the kryptonite spear, and he cuts him along the cheek, and he's about to kill Superman. He's about to finish him off. And then Lois Lane, who I'm not really, I'm not a big fan of Lois Lane in this movie. She didn't really look the part into what I've seen in the past, or compared to what I've seen in the past, but whatever. Anyway, so I should also mention that Superman does go fight Batman, because he didn't want to, is because Lex captured his mother, Martha Kent, and that sent him to go fight him. He's like, either kill Batman or your mother's dead. So he's like, okay. Anyway, and then so Superman's pinned under Batman's boot, about to die, and he yells, "Martha," and then Batman freaks out, and he's all, "How do you know that name?" Because, that's Martha Wayne was his mom, which I don't know how I've never fucking noticed this. Like, I've been a fan of Batman, and I've known about Superman and Spider-Man and all that stuff for, like, ever since I was, like, 5 years old. Like, 20 years now. How have I never fucking connected the dots that both Superman and Batman's mothers are named Martha? How have I never connected that dot? But anyway, and then so Lois Lane shows up, and she's like, "Martha's his mom," and then so Batman realizes that, Superman has there's leverage over him, forcing him to fight Batman, so he stops, and then he throws a spear, And then, of course, he goes off and he's like, I'll save Martha. She won't die tonight. And then so he goes and saves her, and Superman goes after Lex, yada, yada, yada. And then Doomsday comes out, yada, yada, yada. Long story short, in the fight, Wonder Woman does a lot of the major damage to Doomsday, cuts off a fucking arm, and cuts his leg a bit and stuff with her sword, which that fucking sword is insane. And Batman is kind of held back a bit, like he's not really fighting directly, because Doomsday would just eviscerate Batman. But, um, what was I going to say? So, Superman, no, Lois realizes that kryptonite can weaken this thing, so she goes back to get the spear, which she originally threw into I don't know, a 10-foot deep pool of water. I don't know why. But then, like 20 minutes later, she's like, "Oh, we need that." So she goes back to get it, and then she gets buried under rubble, and she's drowning. And Superman hears her pounding away, and she basically almost dies. And he saves her. He dives under, gets the thing, barely able to grab it because it's kryptonite, brings it to the surface, and then he does a speech while he's watching Batman and Wonder Woman fight Doomsday, and he's all like, "I love you, Lois," and blah blah blah. And she's like, "No, don't do this." And so he grabs the spear, and he can barely hold it because it's weakening him, and he flies at maybe half his speed, if that, and he just goes towards Doomsday and stabs him through the chest, and then Doomsday stabs his own spiky arm right through Superman's chest, and then Superman has enough energy to push it through him the rest of the way out his back, and then there's an explosion, and they're both dead. They're both dead on the ground, Doomsday and Superman. And so, in the end, Batman and Wonder Woman are over his body and everything, and then all over the newspaper and everything is that Superman is dead, and also Clark Kent is dead, because I don't remember what the article was, like, killed under rubble or something like that. So they didn't really explain how they pulled off having two funerals, because, you'd need one for Clark Kent and one for Superman, but you only got one body. So, I don't know, maybe the Superman one was just empty, because no one's going to peek in there. And then, of course, Lois at the end of the movie, drops some dirt onto Clark's coffin, and the camera zooms in a bit, and just for a fraction of a second, you see the dirt start to rise off the thing, and then that's the end of the movie. And by the way, if you do see the movie, there's nothing after the credits. My friend and I stayed there, there's nothing. Just telling you that right now. Although, actually, no, that technically wasn't the end of the movie. There is nothing after the credits, but the actual end of the movie is like Lex gets his head shaved, and then the jail cell guard is like telling him to turn around so he can shackle you. He turns around, his head against the wall in his jail cell. The lights flicker, Batman's there. Lex turns around, looks terrified of Batman, and then Batman's all like, I'm going to be having my eye on you from now on. You're not going to do anything about it. And then Lex goes on a crazy rant about, he's coming. He's already, the gong's been rung. They're coming from the stars or space or whatever, and he's on his way here, hinting at who's going to be coming later, whether that's in the next actual movie or not until Justice League itself is a thing, which is going to be Darkseid. There was a lot of hints in it. Even the Omega symbol was burned into the ground, which I didn't actually catch. I guess it's also the God of War symbol, which is interesting. But so that was that. Now, there were a few things in the movie I didn't like. For example, they relied on playing the dream card a few too many times. Where, for example, at the beginning, Bruce's parents are killed, like always, and then it's the funeral, and Batman falls down into the cave as a kid, and he sees the bats. Didn't have a problem with that. I was liking it till then. And then the bats swirl around him, and Bruce, as a kid, starts to levitate back up the hole. And I'm like, whoa, what the fuck is going on here? This doesn't make any sense. And then Bruce Wayne is talking, he's like, I dreamed that it was taking me to the light. And I'm like, oh, it was a dream. Okay. Way to pull that out from underneath us. And then there was another one where he had a dream where he was using guns and killing people, and I was like, what the fuck is this? This doesn't make sense. Batman doesn't use guns. And there was points in the movie, or I should say, first of all, that did turn out to be a dream, and then there's parts in the movie where Batman, yeah, you're not supposed to kill people, but pretty sure you did. Pretty sure you did. Not that Superman didn't, because he fucking did as well. But point was that he absolutely had a few hiccups and issues that Batman's not supposed to do. What else did I have a problem with? Well, not that I had a problem with. I'm not sure what the whole point of Batman having like a vision when he was paying respect and bringing flowers to his mother's grave, and some black goop started to ooze out of the coffin that she was in, like the monument or whatever you want to call it, and then he touches it and he has a vision and freaks out. And then another little thing was that's interesting that they didn't explain, and I actually don't know who the fuck he was when Batman was he kind of was decrypting Lex's thing on his computer and he fell asleep because it was taking so long, and he had a vision or a dream of some like weird looking superhero ish type maybe guy coming through like a portal yelling at him like, "Am I too late? Lois is the key, Lois is the key," and he's just like, "I'm too soon," and then he disappeared. And then Batman woke up and he's like, "Huh, what?" And then his decryption was done. So I'm not sure what that was all about or who the fuck that was. At first I was like, is that Static Shock? No, that doesn't seem right. But either way, weird. So yeah, it's weird that Superman is dead in the end, because in the Batman and Superman fighting scenes in the animated movie, it was Batman who, quote, died and then had to fake his death, but this time it's Superman. Whether he's actually dead, I don't think so. It might be interesting to keep him dead, at least until the Justice League is formed, and then maybe bring him back. But more than likely, they're going to use the alien spaceship that Lex used to create, or to bring Zod back as Doomsday, to bring Clark as Superman back, if he's the same, that is, anyway. Who knows? But also, at one point, Superman, it was in space with Doomsday, and they both took a nuke to the face, just supercharged Doomsday, and kind of, took Superman out for about 5 minutes while he was all shriveled up and radiated, and then he was fine. And then at the end, there's Batman and, well, Bruce and Wonder Woman sitting, or not sitting, but standing at the cemetery, which, by the way, that cemetery looked very familiar. It looked like the one that Peter Parker was in the Spider-Man movies. I forget if that was one or two, but at the end of one of those movies. But anyway, and so Batman's like, we have to find the others that are like you, meaning, Aquaman, Flash, Cyborg, so forth. And she's like, why? And he's like, to fight. And she's like, why do you think we need to fight? And then Bruce just says, I have a feeling. And so you're like, well, even there, Batman can call. Like, oh. So, again, Batman is forging the way for the Watchtower for the Justice League. He's going to create it like he's supposed to. I wonder if they'll actually have a Watchtower in an actual live-action movie. That'd be interesting to see. And I feel like there was one other thing to say, but now I can't remember. Meh. Oh well. So, she also says, like, what makes you think they want to be found? And he's like, well, we have to unite to fight off whatever's going to come, because more shit's going to come, basically. So I think that about covers my thoughts, my review, my discussion about the movie. Overall, was it the best movie? No. No. Was it a bad movie? No. No. So out of a 10, I'm going to give it a 7.5 to maybe even an 8. But there was definitely a few things where I was like, that's not quite right. That should not have happened that way. But I can't complain too much. It was what it was, and that's about it. So we'll see you all in the next video.